Hello, everyone. Jeff Rolka here. Questions from comments 44. Just have 4 questions in this round, but they're really juicy. And so I decided, and I just made one of these like only a week or two ago, but I really wanted to get onto these. I've got some great examples for how to practice these things. Really cool questions about busking, about upper register performance. Yeah, so let's dive in. Thank you if you've chosen to subscribe. If you haven't yet, I hope you'll do so now. Also, to my Patreon supporters, just figured out the chroma thing. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. For those of you that want these exercises as PDFs or MP3s, head on over to Patreon and you can avail yourself of said resources. Number 1, just wanted to ask, when we are approaching the upper range touched within this video, should we be worried about the sound quality of the pitch we hit? Or should we continue on with the hope it will get better over time? This was on a high range vocal warm-up video. Like so many things, it depends on how it sounds and how you are achieving that sound. If you're straining, squeezing out those pitches, then no, that's not the intent of the practices here. The practices here are meant to help us make a smooth transition over the secondo passaggio. It means that something's going to change, but if we mask it very carefully, the casual listener will have no idea what we're doing, and they will think that we have a seamless chest voice. Oftentimes, this practice gets called reinforced falsetto. I don't really like that phrase, though it really has become the kind of popular way of talking about it, because falsetto is a fundamentally different way of configuring the vocal fold. And I suppose there's a bit of argument about that amongst the vocal community, as if we have consensus on anything. And then, but I digress. And then there's, of course, like the school of thought, all the stuff that I read, where it's called voce piena in testa, which is about as accessible as quantum mechanics. It's way more accessible than that, if you ask me, though I don't really know anything about quantum mechanics, so maybe I'm totally wrong. But voce piena in testa, the sound of chest voice in head, that's all you have to remember. And the thing of it is that when we're accessing that range of our voice, we want to make incremental changes as we approach the register event, the secondo passaggio, so that it's not so disruptive. We just want to be able to move back and forth, but we have to be flexible enough to let the vocal fold elongate and contract as necessary. So that's about where my registration event is. And so that means that in this area preceding it, called the zona di passaggio, I'm going to make incremental changes. So if I start here, I make gradual adjustments as I approach my registration event, and then I'll make a nice seamless transition, and casual listeners won't really realize what's happening there, that there's, in fact, a change in the configuration of the vocal folds. And that's what we have to practice. So if you're practicing that, you're doing that, but it's kind of cloudy sounding. So if we're here, for example, like if I were here in my range, and it was kind of cloudy, hollow, that's not what we would think of as a finished sound. And we want to keep on practicing and working to refine our technique through that area of our voice. And that means tonal onsets and vowel changes and intervals and all kinds of different things, all of which you'll find here, if I may say so, on the channel. And continue to listen and evaluate. Refine your concept of where the secondo passaggio is so that you are not anticipating it too much, nor trying to hold it off until it's too high to allow for that seamless connectivity through the ranges. It's a complex process because there's lots of moving parts, but none of it's really that hard. You just have to look at each one in turn and keep on practicing, keep on listening. If you're working with a coach, they hopefully will be helping you with this. This is what this channel is mostly about. The overwhelming majority of my videos are about these practices. So if I may say so too, the guidebook that I made, and frankly needs updating, but the guidebook that I made has sequences and also has a lot of ways to reference and find these practices here on the channel. Because I mean, I'm sure, I know I'm over 1,100 videos. I might be over 1,200 videos here on YouTube. It's not like they're not still good. The practices are just as relevant as the day that I made those videos. So I hope that answers your question. I hope that helps. Let's move on. Hello, Jeff. I'm a baritone singing tenor range most of the time because there isn't enough tenors in my choir. Short interjection here. This is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. It's not really fair to do that, and it happens all the time. So know that if this is you, either the person who wrote this question in or just you in general, you're singing in a choral group and the choral group said, we don't have enough XY fill in the blank, so you're singing pretty well. You go do that. Be very conscientious of your range. Just make sure that you are not unduly pushing your voice into areas where it's not really ideal for your vocal range. Now, there's an awful lot of overlap in adjacent fox. So like tenor and baritone have a lot of overlapping range, as do tenor and alto and mezzo and soprano. And there's even a fair degree of overlap in every other fox. So like the baritones and altos still have about, on average, I'd say at least a perfect fifth, major sixth of overlap. Not a huge amount really, but it's there anyway. So be kind to your voice, know your range, know your tessitura so that you're not straining just to, for the good of the choir, which, I mean, it's good to, do things for groups and things like that, but just keep it real. Okay. I was wondering if baritones can sing tenor range similar to or even the same as tenors with proper training. Sort of. I had a he's very famous singing teacher for a short period of time. He is a baritone, and most of his roles, I think, are as tenors. He used to say he masqueraded as a tenor. What does that mean? That means you, as the baritone, must listen very carefully to your tenor friends and then emulate the qualities that you hear. This will mean not being perhaps so luxurious when you get down below G3, for example. Tenors around here, we can still sing those pitches, but it starts to get a little bit different in tone quality than what baritones can do. Baritones will have these big, luxurious, voluminous qualities to their voice. And conversely, the tenors, as they move into this area, right here around middle C, will really be in their sort of power zone. Baritones are coming up on their secondo passaggio, which is right around here for most baritones. So you have to take those things into consideration if you are going to masquerade as a tenor. This would mean being a little bit lighter and a little bit brighter in this range, which would not feel natural to a baritone. They would want to kind of be a little bit more resonant and large, lovely, luscious. And that would also mean knowing that you are going to be a little bit deeper into the registration event as you approach this area. Your registration event technique will have to be particularly good because the tenor parts will probably go up to a G fairly consistently, and that means you're going to be going back and forth across your secondo passaggio, across your break. And in order to masquerade as a tenor, you're going to want to have that very well dialed in, not the least of which is so that you aren't doing undue strain on your voice. So it will be remarkably similar. You can have solidly a 90-ish, 95% of the range that the tenor friends, your average tenor friend, is going to have. You can really embody a lot of the overall range, and your tenor friends will never have the low range that you do. So yes, you can masquerade as a tenor. It will take some practice. It will mean careful attention to detail around your secondo passaggio. But aside from that, I encourage you to explore the masquerading tenor space. Enjoy. Take really good care of your voice, though. Just make sure, if you notice that you're kind of trying to squeeze those pitches out, circle back around, work on your registration event, then come at them again. Just be patient with your voice. Long question here, really interesting one. Great video as always, Jeff. Thank you so much for all you do for us. I face a challenge at the moment. Whenever I follow along with your exercises, I can hear great improvement in my voice. But when I start my singing practice along with a song, it's almost as if everything I learned goes out the window. I feel like I can't shake my bad singing habits, probably because I've been singing wrong for so many years, mostly with strain. For example, I'm practicing this song, and the first note of the chorus hits an F4. So what I do is use your U exercise from the beginning of one of your alto warm-ups, and I just keep singing that F4 over and over again with the U until I feel like I am calibrated and comfortable. But then, as soon as I get to singing the song, it's like I can't get the air pressure right. It's either too squeezed and strained, or it's too weak, and the tone is bad also. Do you know how I can shake off these bad singing habits that I have developed over time so that I can properly implement the things I am currently learning? Also, I think I've just realized that I'm a tenor and not an alto. Ha ha ha. Yes, okay, cool. So great question. There's a process you can practice to this. That exercise, now, the U syllable comes up in a lot of different things. First and foremost, it's about access. It's about learning to access the upper register of your voice and playing with the balance of elongation of the vocal fold. So a lot of the exercises that you would begin with, you, 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 aren't really the finished product. They're a practice to establish access. Now, I couldn't think of a song that had a chorus that started right on F4, but I came up with one. I thought of one that actually most of us will probably be familiar with. And hopefully my video won't get taken down immediately when you hear that, but yesterday goes up to an F4. So first and foremost is to make sure that you have access. Now, I'm going to use this melody as an example. Access means that I can successfully sing to F4 in the context of this line. Or I should say I can sing an F4 regardless of the context. So that would mean beginning with exercises like you said. You, 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 It also would mean "Hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh." You'll notice that I exceeded the F4 by a major second. I went up to C major, which went to a G. It's generally good practice to do the vocalization. So I'm doing these vocalizations to learn that snippet of melody from yesterday. Get the vocalizations to exceed the high note of the phrase by about a major second, a minor third, if you like. It's not so much that it's going to build strength or anything like that, but it's just to kind of move the top note of the phrase to a different spot of the phrase so that you don't get there and top out and then not really have the kind of energy to sustain it or have anywhere to go from there. Once you've done that, you can then begin to start to mark pitches with a short syllable. You could use you, you could also use we. And here, I'm going to leave everything else out. I'm just going to look at the phrase in question. We. You can hear how cloudy it gets. It's really accentuating that cricothyroid dominance in my voice here. We. That openness is going to help me once I have a solid vowel. When I can mark the pitch successfully, and there are more steps that we could go through here. If I was really struggling with it, I might reverse the phrase. All sorts of changes around, things like that, make it more familiar, get us more access. Having done that, I would incorporate some melismatic practices. Seeing that I can sing all the way through the phrase on a solid vowel. I might then incorporate some vowel changes just to start the process of switching vowels, which is ultimately what the vocal line is going to be. It's all these different vowels all in a sequence. So I might sing or really any combination that you like. You might start with ones that feel really good to you, that you find are easy for you. That would be a great place to begin. I might also mention that if you, again, you're really struggling with it, changing the key so that it's easier to sing will also make it better. To help you, it's not just that you want to make it easier, but you want to be able to get the line really embedded into your mind. So you're going to take one challenge at a time. Instead of working on, you might, if I were really having a difficult time with it, and then step by step or semitone by semitone, move it back to the performance key. Having done all that, take the vowels from your phrase. And then you can finally start to bring a little bit of the consonants back in. All my troubles seem so far away. All my troubles seem so far away. And you've got your line. You may need to repeat that several times. You know, you might do it one day and get some good success, and you have to come back a couple days later and do it again. And then when you go to a different phrase that has similar high notes, it might not immediately translate. The vocalizations that we do that establish access and help us refine our technique are, in comparison to a song, pretty easy. And you could just do those, and when it just became the habit that you sang all your vowels with and all the permutations of your vowels with, then you might not need to repeat a process like this in order to get those phrases to work out. But a way to expedite that process is to do a process like this, so that you're taking a look at the line, looking at the vowels, working through the alignment of the vowels, maybe pulling it out of its performance key, and then working your way back up to it so that you're just dealing with one challenge at a time. And then, having done that several times, maybe on several different songs and different phrases and things like that, the process will get faster and faster and faster. Great question. I hope that helps. Last question. I found this very interesting, and, well, here's a question. I do a lot of busking, and you've helped a lot. First of all, short interjection. Awesome. Thank you for mentioning it. I'm really happy about that. That's what all of these videos are for. So keep going. Really, really great. Thank you for sharing that. People pay me more all the time. The question is how to deal with being unable to talk to people because it stresses my voice. People think I'm standoffish or ignoring them, but I don't want to explain why I can't talk. The other day, I wrote my destination down in a cab, and then he was mad when I started doing vocal warm-ups. He said, "You're not mute, you're just pretending. See, you're singing." He was so mad. He didn't even want to tip. I don't actually know what SMH means, so I'm just going to kind of skip over that. It's worse when someone tips me money and then wants me to stop mid-song and have a long conversation. It destroys my voice, but I feel like a jerk because they think I'm rude. This is really a bit tough, if you ask me, because of course, like, I'm mostly familiar with my own personal frame of reference. If I happened to be one of those people that threw a couple bucks in the tip jar, I wouldn't expect you to stop the song to talk to me. I mean, that to me, honestly, seems like the rude thing to do. That it's like to continue to sing the song, to me personally, and obviously I am biased, doesn't seem rude. The converse to me seems quite rude indeed, that they would expect you to stop. I don't understand why that would be like that. I wonder where you're busking, and the sort of culture, the way that people expect to interact with musicians in the area that you're in. Because I have to admit that much of what you're reporting is very much outside my frame of reference and my personal experience. I haven't really experienced things like that. I've certainly been busking. I've certainly done very casual gigs where, you know, people can come and talk to me, and I'm right there and they're right there and things like that. I try to always smile a lot and give a few really encouraging, thankful words. Thank you so much. I'm going to get back to the song. Something to that effect. Vocalizing in the cab, I would do my vocalizing before I got in the cab, so that way you could just say, like, "Hey, 56th and Broadway," or wherever it is you're telling them that you're going, and then you're off. I know that in some cities there's a culture of talking with your cab driver. Then think about ways that you can show them that you are engaged, preserve your voice, and still kind of have a nice repartee. So one of the things is, for one, make sure that you're sitting upright. If you're in the cab, sit upright, engage, like pretend like you're singing. See if you can sit so that they can see you in their mirror and use your face, use your hands, and then stick to single syllable answers. Yeah, exactly. That was 3 syllables, but you get my drift here, right? Think about the economy of your language when you're talking to these people. But a couple months ago, I went to my ENT and I told her what I do, and she scoped out my throat and she's like, "No, you're fine. Just some irritation. I forgot what they called it now, but basically it was swollen. Like one of my vocal folds was a bit swollen." And she's like, "You're a vocal professional. You need to prioritize your voice." So that meant not talking to my family for several days, just so that I could use my voice primarily for making videos and practicing and things like that, and be able to rest when I was not doing these sorts of things. And that was hard. And maybe that hardens me a little bit and doesn't really make me worry so much about a stranger or a cab driver. And I'm not suggesting that you actually be confrontational or standoffish or rude. Like, do none of those things, but engage in different ways. Use your face, use your hands, say a word or two, but literally a word or two. You don't need to go into great detail. Asking questions can also be a good strategy to get them talking so that you don't have to talk. That's one of my favorites. And quite frankly, you learn amazing things about people when you ask questions. So perhaps there is a little bit of physical maintenance, a little bit of strategic language, quite a bit of facial expression and hands, and then what you might think of as sort of, it's not meant to be offensive, like I'm going to be offensive, but go on the offense. Be engaged. Ask a question that does not have a yes or no answer, and listen carefully. And then, ask another question to follow up and keep them going. And people love to talk about themselves. Listen to me. I'm not even talking about myself, and I love talking. But yeah, and I would try to do my vocalizations before you get in the cab. That's not great anyway. I mean, it's just not seated and all that kind of stuff. Even if you're seated when you are busking, try to do your vocalizations before you head out. And if you can't do that, then do them while you're getting set up, or do them, pick some songs that are really, really easy to sing and use those as, it's not the same thing as a vocalization, but it'll let you warm up into your gig, something that is super easy. You could sing if you were asleep, something to that effect. Great questions, one and all. Thank you so much. If you have follow-ups, you have other questions, drop them in the comments below. If you want to have this as an MP3 that you can listen to your heart's content, Patreon is where you can have it. And I thank, again, all those Patreon supporters. I truly appreciate your support. You are what makes this happen. So thank you. Thank you also if you've chosen to subscribe. And until next time, I will say take really good care of your voices, enjoy singing, and hopefully we'll see you again. Bye.